How's it going, fellow reefers? As always, God bless you, and thank you for being here. I'm Gage, and this is Candy Coral Aquatics. If you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell. This is where I talk about all things reefing, but more importantly, where I share the information I've gathered on my tank with you guys to help you become better hobbyists at this hobby we call reefing. Today is going to be part 2 of our aquarium beginner's guide, and it's going to be our equipment checklist, making sure that you guys have everything you need to maintain and set up that beautiful, successful saltwater tank that you've been looking for. A couple of things before I dive into the video. Excuse me. Number one, for those of you that are new, I don't want you to think I have like some dirty tank or something. Like, please, I ask you, go back and check out my previous videos before I redid this 60-gallon. You guys will see I had some beautiful stuff in here, but it bothers me, so I have to say something right now. Okay, so up in here, you can see that the glass isn't very clean. I tried to get back here the best I could before the video and like wipe off that back glass. But because the tank sits so close to the wall, it's really hard for me to get back there. And I would actually have to take off my protein skimmer to clean it. And I was just like, I'm not going to mess with that right now. The other thing is, since my cycling video I uploaded, you can see I'm starting to get those brown diatoms. So we're starting to enter that ugly stage of the cycling process. It's not real bad, but I just wanted to point it out. I just want to point it out to you guys. Also, I added a clay pot because tomorrow I should have a couple of clownfish to throw in the tank as well. So I'll update you on that when it happens. All right, getting into the video now. So this is going to be our equipment checklist, and right off the top, let's talk about lighting. So it doesn't really matter what type of lighting you choose. Just make sure that whatever kind you choose, it hits the checkbox on a couple of things. Number one, I would always suggest that you get more lighting or stronger lighting than what you think you're going to need. Because as you advance in this hobby and as you progress and become more successful, it's only natural that you say, okay, well, instead of soft coral, I want to try LPS. Or instead of LPS, I want to try SPS. And you're going to want and need that stronger lighting. So you're going to be tapping yourself on the back and thanking me, yes, thank you, Gage, later for talking you into buying that better and stronger light for your reef tank. If I had to recommend lighting, I would say go with LEDs. The two brands that I would personally recommend, number one being what I've had the most experience with, which is the Aqua Illuminations Hydra series. I run 2 Hydra 26 HDs. I love the fact that they're completely customizable. I can change, the spectrum at any time on a fly if I want to in a matter of seconds. I can make my tank green and red for Christmas. I mean, you can do anything that you want with them. Me, when I'm growing coral, I jack up my blues, turn off my reds, turn off my greens, jack up my UVs, my purples, because that's really what the coral wants anyways, is all that blue spectrum. And then I might add like a couple % here or there, like maybe 3% at the max of whites, just to like give the fish a little bit of accent. That way my fish pop and my corals are popping, those bright neon colors from the blue spectrum. So just whatever lighting system you go with, make sure it's customizable. You can adjust it and get the look that you want while also maintaining what your corals need. Let's move on to number 2, which is flow. When it comes to flow, it's very possible that it's the most important thing that you can get right in your reef tank. And if you don't get flow right, I'm telling you from experience, it's going to cause you nightmares. So picture, if you will, a reef tank full of beautiful coral. It's a mixed reef. We have SPS hard corals, and then we have some LPS stuff like torches or frog spawns or hammer corals, whatever, gonioporas, things that move around. You want to make sure that everything's blowing in such a fashion where it's not necessarily overlapping its partner. Everything's getting the oxygenation, the nutrient transport, and the waste removal that it needs. Flow is very complicated, and it does take a while to get flow right. So to help you guys off in the, getting it right the first time, again, just like the LEDs, I would recommend that you get a power head that is customizable. And I just remembered, going back to lighting for a second, I told you guys I'd recommend 2 brands, and I only told you about the one I use. The second brand is the Ecotec Radions. I've personally never used Radions, but a lot of people do. A lot of big professional coral growers do. I know they got to be good. I've just never used them. I've always used the Hydras. Okay, going back to flow. Again, just like lighting, make sure that your power head is customizable. I have both an MP10 from Ecotec, and then I have an AI Nero 5. If I was to recommend one over the other, it's kind of a hard recommendation. They're both such fantastic pumps, but I would probably have to lean more over to the AI side, and here's why. The Nero 5 is quieter than the MP10s, or the I think they're called Vortex, but the Ecotecs, the MP series, whatever they are, the MP series from Ecotec, they're actually a lot quieter pump than Neros are. They're just as customizable as the Ecotec pumps, but they come in at like 50% or so less than the cost of an Ecotec pump. Like my MP10 ran me like, it was like $300 or something crazy. Whereas the Nero 5, which like I said, I can get the same types of flow with my Nero. I want to say it was like 120, 150. So it's like 50% or so less than the MP10. But regardless of what type of power head you go with, get something customizable. Like my Nero, I have an app that I can pull up, and because I'm using Hydra lights, I can actually run both my lighting and my flow off of the same app. So what's nice is I just click an app, it opens up, I click flow, and then right from my smartphone, I can adjust the type of flow, the intensity, how often it changes. I can set randomized flows. There's a lot that I can do with the pump. Now, the Ecotecs allow you to do that as well. I have not purchased any Ecotecs recently, but the Ecotec MP10 that I have has built-in settings from the factory, and there's like a controller that you have with it that you just use to adjust the different settings, which is fine with me. Like, it doesn't have to be an app. I don't care. I just like the custom, to be able to customize my flow either way. So again, whatever product you decide to go with, make sure you can customize your flow, because flow is going to be what's responsible for helping to maintain healthy corals. So as the corals excrete wastes, the flow takes it away. It prevents things like tissue rot, necrosis, die-off, things like that. SPS corals, like acroporas, will actually grow in patterns depending upon the amount of flow that you have in your tank. So if you look at the tank and somebody's got like a really goofy-looking acropora, it's because their flow is like just really laminar, meaning like one direction. So they end up with this really weird shaped acropora rather than a nice rounded out acropora that would suggest healthier flow, if that makes sense. So some corals will actually grow in the direction of flow, which is why you want to have randomized flow. And then nutrient transport. So when you're putting stuff into the tank for the corals, it'll make its way to the coral. And then oxygenation. You don't want stagnant water around corals. Corals need nutrient export, import, and oxygenation. So getting your flow right is very important. One way that you can test your flow, once you get your power head set up and you have it on whatever setting that you would like, you can like reach down on the sand bed and maybe just kick some sand up, and you can actually watch where that kind of churns around in the water. Another thing you can do is add some food to the tank and see where all that stuff is floating to. That'll help you identify any dead spots that you might have and prevent future issues later on. The next thing that we need to check off the list for equipment is going to be filtration. Filtration, guys, it really doesn't matter what you use. Like, I use a canister filter, and there's probably some of you going, oh my goodness, you can't do that. Well, like I said, if you don't believe me, go back through my videos and see what I had in this tank. I've always ran a canister filter, and it's always been perfectly fine. Filtration has never been an issue. It doesn't matter what kind of filtration you use. Canister filter, sump, overflow, hang on the back, I don't care. What matters is you're maintaining your filtration, cleaning it like you're supposed to, adding, the carbon or the media or whatever that you want to put in there, changing it out regularly, changing your filter pads, doing the cleaning and the maintenance, and you're going to be fine. The other thing that matters is when it comes to filtration, go bigger than what you need. This will ensure that you're getting the maximum amount of water filtration, water overturn, if you will. So the maximum amount of cycling your water that you can. What I mean by that is This is a 60-gallon cube. The filtration that I have right now would more than likely very easily filter between 80 to 90 gallons. So I am getting maximum water turnover. Okay, so every single day I am getting constant high amounts of water filtration, overflow, overturn. Okay, so we're pulling in lots of water, filtering lots of water, swapping it out, pulling in, filtering, swapping it out. If you just go with what your tank is, like for instance, if I have a 60-gallon tank and I only get filtration that's suited for a 60-gallon tank, well, as I start to add livestock and corals and I start feeding and blah, 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 that filtration is going to get overran very quickly, right? It's going to be dwarfed in comparison to everything else that you're adding to the tank. So always try to go bigger. I would say 10 to 20 gallons more than what you think you might need, and then just maintain it from there. It's really not complicated. Filtration's very easy. It's the easiest part about this. The next thing is heating your aquarium. All right, so water temperature. Now you might be thinking, well, Gage, that should be the easiest thing, not filtration. Well, it's really not, because if you don't get a good heater, an expensive heater that has temperature monitoring, how can you ever actually know what the temperature of your tank really is? You can say, well, the heater that I have is adjustable and I set it to 78 degrees, so I know that at 78 degrees it's going to turn off. Okay, yes, but here's the problem. Once you start combining the churning of the water, once you start combining these high power lighting systems, you're going to raise the temperature of the water very quickly, okay? So I always recommend that when you're heating your tank, you get some sort of a heater that has monitoring with it and an alarm system. So I ended up going with the bulk Reef Supply titanium heater that actually comes with a probe. Yes, whoops, hit my phone there. Yes, it's one more thing in the tank. Over here I have a little probe that I just super glued to the side of the tank. Big deal. Once coral and everything starts growing back in here again, you probably won't even notice it. But what's nice about it is, I show you guys, I go down here, I have constant monitoring. Where is it? There it is, right there. Okay, so you can see that I have it set for 78.7 degrees, and it's currently 78.3 degrees, okay? Now, what this will do is, if for some reason my water temperature increases by more than 0.5 degrees, it will let me know. It will alarm, which is super nice, because if for some reason a heater fails or goes into overdrive and starts boiling your water for whatever reason, because stuff happens, you want to be privy to that, right? You want a system that's going to let you know. And it's also really nice because I can say, oh, okay, my tank's at 78.3 degrees. That's perfect. Now, the reason I have it set a little bit higher is because now that we're kicking off into summer, hopefully eventually here, I'll be running air conditioning again. So I got to, set the heater a little bit higher because the room's going to be a lot cooler. And that allows me to then make minor adjustments up or down, whichever way I need to go, because I have constant monitoring of my water's temperature. Yes, they're more expensive, but you get what you pay for, and it will prevent, in the long run, a complete meltdown, or for some reason your heater failed and you didn't know, and you wake up the next morning and your tank's 60 degrees and everything's dead. So, food for thought. All right, guys, the next portion of filtration that you may want to consider is a protein skimmer. Protein skimmers are very, very beneficial, very beneficial. Now, can you have a saltwater system without a protein skimmer? Absolutely, you can. And I'm sure there's plenty of tanks out there that don't have them, but more often than not, you see protein skimmers. So let me show you why protein skimmers are a very effective means of filtration and something you should add to your aquarium checklist. All right, there's my protein skimmer right there, bubbling away. And even though I don't have any livestock in the tank, you can actually see that it's still pulling out some gunkiness, right? So what a protein skimmer does is it creates this vortex of water inside of itself, with producing billions of these little microbubbles. And these microbubbles produce a foam that then rises through the neck of the skimmer and starts to pop. And while it's popping and all this foam is coming out, it's skimming. So what it's doing is it's pulling all these nutrients up out of the water, creating this nutrient dense foam, and then pulling that foam up. And as those bubbles and foam and stuff, pops, it's dumping those raw wastes into the collection cup. A protein skimmer is invaluable when it comes to the filtration of your tank. Once you guys start getting livestock into the tank and you're feeding and all that other stuff, this thing will produce the nastiest, thickest, stinkiest, muddy looking paste that you've ever seen. And if you didn't have a protein skimmer, all of that gunk would just be floating around in your tank, polluting your tank, and elevating your nutrient levels. So absolutely a must in my book is a protein skimmer. Just like filtration, you always want to go bigger than what you need. My protein skimmer is rated for 75 gallons, and this is a 60-gallon cube. So there again, I'm doing about 15 gallons more than I actually need, and that really is the key to having good filtration. Okay, so let's see here. We've covered lighting, we've covered flow, we've covered filtration, we've covered heating, and then we covered a second portion of filtration, which is protein skimming. I think that pretty much covers everything as far as what you guys need to get started to maintain that beautiful, healthy reef tank that you guys want. Next portion of the beginner's guide, part 3, I think we're going to start diving into water parameters. So it might get pretty complex, but I'll do my very best to explain it and break it down for you guys, because that part 3 of our water parameters, we're going to start discussing the science behind how to make our corals grow. And then we're going to start discussing what we're going to be testing for, how to monitor it, what our levels should be, and things to watch out for and help prevent. So if you enjoyed today's video, guys, please give it a thumbs up, drop a comment if you'd like, and if you'd like to see anything else in the future, I'm always looking for constructive criticism and ideas, and more often than not, if you guys suggest something, I'll do my very best to make a video for you. Until next time, guys, take care and God bless.